Oh, good. That looks like we've got our attendees that are showing up. Hello, everyone. We're just waiting a few more seconds here to get a little bit more of an audience before we get rolling. And once we have a few people more, we'll probably get moving along here. You're here for the Clean Water Program's Underground Flow Equalization System Construction Update. And you are in the right virtual meeting. So give us a few minutes and we'll get rolling here. It looks like we still have just a few people that have joined us so far, just 5. We are expecting a few more, so we're just gonna give it a few more minutes until we get rolling. You are at the Clean Water Program's UFES Construction Update virtual meeting, so you are in the right room if you're curious. And we are ready to get going. We're just waiting for a few more to arrive. This meeting is being recorded for anybody who was not aware of that, and we will be posting it to our Clean Water Program website, by the morning. Gonna give it a few more minutes until we get rolling. I see we have Gil here has joined now, so that makes 6 attendees. We're just waiting for a few more to show up before we get rolling. If you're just joining us, we are recording this meeting, and it is the Clean Water Program's Underground Flow Equalization System virtual community meeting, and we will be starting in just a few minutes. We're just waiting for a few more people to arrive, and then we'll get rolling. So bear with us. I hope you have some water, a comfortable chair, and I hope this isn't your umpteenth Zoom meeting of the day. We will get rolling pretty soon here. So bear with us while we just wait for a few more people to arrive. So when the clock hits 6:05, I think we're going to get rolling here. We will get off to a start with the attendees that we have now. Just a last note again, in case anybody didn't hear it the first time, this meeting is being recorded. So at 6:05, we're going to start our meeting, and I will, those of us who aren't presenting will close our cameras and our microphones, and we will get rolling. So Azalea, would you like to take it away?
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining us, the Clean Water Program team, for a presentation on the construction of the Underground Flow Equalization System project, or UFES for short. My name is Azalea Mitch, and I'm the Deputy Public Works Director overseeing this effort. As many of you know, the city embarked on a $1 billion program to address regulatory compliance requirements back in 2015. The UFES project is the largest improvement being made to the sewer collection system and will help improve both public and environmental health, benefiting residents, future generations, and the San Francisco Bay community for years to come. Next slide, Derek. Oh, and thank you for joining us, winter solstice, and big conjunction happening tonight. So in terms of this presentation, you will hear from Kelly Benz, who is our Communications and Public Relations Lead, and who will walk you through the norms for this virtual meeting. Our team consists of Derek DeKeegan, our Engineering Manager, and Tom Williams, our Senior Engineer on this project. They both will provide you with an overview of the construction activities. Bethany Lopez, our Senior Traffic Engineer, will explain the changes that we will be implementing to facilitate the construction and to maintain all the different modes of traffic. Also, part of the team is Ron Esmilla. He is the construction manager on the project, and he will be responsible for directly overseeing the contractor. So we thank you very much for your time, and we hope that this presentation is informative. With that, I'll pass it on to Kelly.
Hi again, everyone. We are meeting you tonight in a Zoom webinar, which by now most everyone should be pretty familiar with. After the presentation is finished, if anyone has any questions they want to ask, please raise your hand. And if you're phoning in, just press 9 to raise your hand. We will keep it to the citywide rule of 3 minutes for every question. And if you have a follow-up question, if you don't mind going to the back of the queue again, we've got a pretty small group here, so we should be able to move through any questions that might come up, especially if anyone has follow-up questions. As I mentioned at the very beginning, this meeting is being recorded so that you're aware. We'll also post it to the Clean Water Program's webpage the very next day. Derek, I believe I'm handing it over to you now, unless there's something more that I need to. Oh, yes, we have our agenda, and we'll be going over the project overview.
Kelly, I could take this slide. Thank you.
Okay, Derek, I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Azalea, for the introductions. And yeah, so here tonight, my name is Derek Keegan. I'm the engineering manager, as Azalea has indicated. We have a pretty long presentation, but a lot of the content is very informative and important for the community to hear about. So tonight we're going to have a project overview. We're going to talk about construction activities, primarily one about the event center site activities, as well as the pipe construction on Saratoga and Delaware. We're going to talk about monitoring and managing the construction, and then reporting, outreach, and engagement throughout the project, as well as finishing up with a question and answer session for the attendees participating on this call. So why are we here? Primarily because of sewer overflow impacts and regulatory violations. If you see on the diagram on the left, the blue circles there are all the sanitary sewer overflows that have occurred historically and in our model. And a lot of them are occurring along the Delaware corridor there. And when a sanitary sewer overflow occurs, it pretty much flows out of the manhole onto the street, into the gutter, into the storm drain in the creeks, and then eventually into the San Francisco Bay. So we ultimately want to stop this. We are aware of this, we've been aware of this, and even the California Water Board is aware of this, and they've issued a cease and desist order in 2009 requiring the city to prevent sanitary sewer overflows. And this is why we're spending a significant amount of money to improve our wastewater infrastructure. We want to provide system capacity and optimize collection system performance, and overall improve safety and reliability of the system and reduce discharges of raw sewage in San Mateo and the Bay. This ultimately, as Azalea has indicated, will help provide good for the environment as well as our community. So this is an overview of the project locations and features. Many of you have seen this before. The bullets on the left, it is going to be at the event center east corner, at least the underground structure shown in yellow. We have an approximate 5.3 million gallon underground temporary holding structure being constructed at the event center there. And it started construction. Many of you have probably seen it. What is coming up in the near future is a new diversion system, and that is all the pipe work within Delaware and Saratoga, and shown in blue and green there. And we're going to be providing more detail about that. The other components to this project is we're going to have an above ground electrical building that's also going to be located adjacent to the underground structure on the event center site, and continuous odor control facilities. This is another aerial rendering of what the structure will look like, and some perspective as to how far it is from the adjacent communities. The underground structure is shown there. It's approximately 150 feet from the excavation to Fiesta Gardens' closest residential properties, along with 350 feet to the Bay Meadows community across 28th there. We also wanted to talk about the construction contractor pre-qualification process. The contractors that we reviewed, we basically advertised out to obtain statement of qualifications, and every contractor that was able to bid on this project met these pre-qualification criteria requirements here. Some essential requirements such as license and insurance, history and performance, health, safety, and labor compliance, references and experiences. We wanted to make sure that whichever contractor bid on the project were qualified to meet it, and not everyone who submitted a statement of qualification met these requirements. So ultimately in June, or actually in May, we awarded the construction contract to Anderson Pacific. They are leaders in the construction of water and wastewater infrastructure. They have over 53 years of experience on similar projects to ours, and they have, since the beginning of working with us, proactively identified risks and collaboratively worked with us to identify solutions. Now, what to expect during construction. Tom Williams is going to be talking a lot about the first main bullet there, which is the UFES activities on the event center site by phase, excuse me, here. So there's 6 different phases. I'm not going to talk about them here, but basically Tom will walk through all of those. The pipeline construction, Tom will walk through those as well. I'm sorry, I don't know why my computer's doing that, but pipeline construction. And then Bethany Lopez is going to talk about the traffic control plan requirements associated with that pipeline construction. And then in terms of traffic routes, for the event center site, we actually purchased an easement from San Mateo County, since a lot of the construction traffic coming to and from that underground structure will need to, right now, as we've planned it, to go through that access easement, routing to and from Delaware, instead of routing across Saratoga to get to the site. And so this was at the request of the community when we were getting the special use permit for the project. And one of the conditions of approval was to actually route a majority of the traffic coming to and from that site along this easement route. And from there, all construction traffic is supposed to go to the designated traffic haul route, which is shown in green there. It ultimately goes to and from Delaware to 92. And then, of course, any work for Saratoga, such as the pipeline work, although not as much traffic as what will be coming in and out of the event center site, some of that pipeline work construction traffic will have to utilize Saratoga, but to a less smaller degree. And coming up next are some explanations about the different phases of the event center site from Tom Williams.
All right, very good. I think I've turned my video on. Okay, so you all are probably familiar that the work started, and so there was some site preparation. It's not a very complex site, so essentially it needed to be cleared. There was some trailers that had to be moved, and they had to do a little bit of grading. And so that's complete. Now we're at the shoring phase, so we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So what we're doing is, in order to isolate this structure and protect the groundwater levels, we're building a watertight, essentially a watertight box that we're going to build another concrete box inside. So what's happening today is they're doing a deep soil mixing wall. The machine that you see that's got the tower on it like a drill rig is mixing concrete with soil and forming a watertight barrier around the perimeter, and inside that we'll excavate. So that's what's happening currently. There's a little bit of soil waste that will be removed from the site, but mostly a little bit of cement being delivered, and the cement's mixed on site. And next slide. So this is the way it works. You see this, where it says shoring wall in this picture on the right side. This machine has augers on it, drives in the ground, mixes concrete with the soil. It moves very slowly. If you stand out there and watch it, it looks like it's not doing anything, but I think it's about 30 centimeters an hour, and it's going down about 80 feet. They've got about 30 or 40% of the wall already done, and this is at the treatment plant, but we'll have a very similar setup here. It's reinforced with steel, and then there are special tie rods that go back in the ground that keep the wall vertical while we do the excavation. And this is the actual equipment working. You can see in the picture on the right, the steel beams that have been put in place. They form the reinforcement for this concrete wall. And it just essentially goes around the perimeter. Now we will withdraw water from the inside, but it won't let the groundwater enter from the outside. So we won't draw down the groundwater in the perimeter. And this is essentially the dewatering plan. You can see the water's drawn out of the pit where we're working, but there's very little effect on the groundwater. Now we're monitoring all this. We're monitoring the pit, and we have wells around the neighborhood that are watching the groundwater levels. And so we have a trigger point. If they drop below a certain level, we would, if it's below too much, we would stop work. But groundwater goes down very slowly, so we would know well in advance if we were pulling down the groundwater. Next slide. And then as this wall is finished, excavation will begin. And that's probably the heaviest work that'll be visible. Dump trucks will arrive, and they'll be loaded and haul away the spoil material from the pit. And there's a timeline slide coming, but that goes on for 5 months. And that will be essentially the work during that period. We'll be digging out that very large pit for the construction. Next slide. And once the pit's dug, then micro piles are installed. Now these piles are drilled, and they're small, they're short, and they're not hammered. So there shouldn't be very much noise associated with them. And that's how the machine looks. It's a small machine that drills this pile, and there for stability of the structure, they keep it from the uplift from floating. The structure's empty most of the time, so there's a fairly large uplift pressure on it from the groundwater. And they're just part of the structural integrity of the building. Next slide. So after the piles are drilled, we can begin the slabs and the concrete work, and this would be the structural, and this will take many months of construction. It's a poured concrete structure, so there'll be a lot of concrete arriving. Generally about once a week, there'll be a concrete pour, and there'll be a flurry of activity, and then the rest of that time will be in finishing and preparing for another pour. Next slide. And these are examples of this type of structure being built in various places. It's a pretty intense operation with lots of concrete work. Next slide. And then at the conclusion, there'll be site finishing. So other than the electrical building that you can see in the far upper corner, the tank virtually disappears. There won't be much evidence of it. It'll go back to being a parking lot that the event center will make use of, with some restrictions because we do have some equipment access. Next slide. And so this slide discusses a little bit of the monitoring that we're doing. So on site now, we have noise, dust, and vibration monitors. They operate 24 hours a day. We have a live webcam, which you can see on the website on the UFES page. We also have settlement monitors. There's you can see the total station. It's on the Saratoga side on the fence. There are reflectors, prisms that have been placed in strategic locations all around the area, and this surveying instrument is measuring those constantly, and it's watching for any movement or changes, any tilt. There's prisms on the Bay Meadows, the two Bay Meadows buildings that are on 28th near Saratoga. There are prisms in the street, the sidewalks, the wall across the street at Vesta Gardens, and there's prisms in the parking lot at the event center, and various other ones. There's a numerous set of prisms, and so we're watching for settlement through those prisms. We're watching for vibrations, noise, dust. We've got the camera. We're watching groundwater. There are groundwater wells strategically placed in the neighborhood, plus we have on-site wells. So there's quite a bit of monitoring taking place. Plus we've done home surveys for homes that elected to have those surveys done in Fiesta Gardens and Bay Meadows. Next slide. Now, to make this system work, there's a set of diversion pipes. So because what happens is in an event, the wastewater has to be diverted into the structure, and then when the event's over, it has to be pumped out. And so this is the construction that you're going to see. There'll be a pipeline built in Saratoga Drive, another pipeline in Delaware, and a force main is going to be installed in Saratoga, but it's going to be done by slip lining an existing sewer with a resin material. So it won't involve so much construction. And then this force main will terminate with a directional drilling to get under it has to get under the obstructions at the end. So there'll be that work that'll take place near Delaware and Saratoga. And this is the pipe system that makes this work. And it also involves a structure at the intersection of Saratoga and Delaware that essentially is the valve that makes the system work. It diverts the flow to the structure. And it's a rather large concrete box also, but not large like the tank, like the UFES. And it'll all be underground. It'll be under the street. Nobody will be aware of it being there other than the manhole lids, the hatches. And so the pipeline, the significant pipelines that'll be built in Saratoga and Delaware are going to be built by microtunneling. The microtunneling process essentially does away with the open pit or the open trench, but it does have pits. So they're rather significant size footprint for the pits where they drive this drive machine. On the right side, there's a picture of the machine itself, and you can see the worker there and in the hard hat. That's a pretty large piece of equipment. So this pit is set up, and there's a pretty good size operation of handling pipe, removing spoil material. There's some other material handling that goes on, and those will be significant, but there will be no open cut. So this machine will drive a pipe from the pit to the receiving pit, which is a smaller pit, and we'll be able to accomplish the sewer construction without digging up large stretches of the street. It's a very precise but a very complex way to lay a pipe, and we feel like it'll be the least disruptive thing that we can do.
All right. So I'm going to talk about how the traffic control for this work is going to occur in this area, and really just kind of lay out the sequence of events for how this all gets accomplished. You can see that there's different colors on the screen, and those all represent a different phase of the work. Some of these will be occurring concurrently, and so I'm going to go through how some of those are going to operate in conjunction as well. Go ahead, up the next slide. All right, so some of the goals with the traffic control were, I think, first and foremost, to provide the safe and continuous travel, like it says, for all modes of transportation. We were considering the vehicles coming through this area, pedestrians and bicyclists that do already have paths through this area, and how we might be able to accommodate them with this traffic control plan. We did also want to try to minimize the impacts to these various modes of traffic. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the options that we pursued, or we considered several other options, and in an attempt to minimize the impacts to these other modes of transportation, some of those were not pursued because of the duration that they might have, or the impact that they may have. We did also want to maintain the access for the event center. As you guys are aware, there's COVID testing occurring there, and so we again wanted to make sure that that was unimpeded. And if there are perhaps events down the road, that those events are not impeded either. We wanted to facilitate the safe construction progress going through this area, and also coordinate with a lot of the other traffic control plans that are going on in this area. So you guys are, I'm sure, very aware of the other construction that's going on in the southerly parts of this section of Delaware. All right, so moving into the first phase. The first phase is work that's going to occur along Saratoga. And so what the primary function of this traffic control is going to do is allow for the southerly part of Saratoga to be closed. So you guys can see the green here, where the green is shown. That's where that microtunneling that Tom was just referring to, that microtunneling is going to be occurring on that side of the roadway. And so what that means is that we are going to be shifting the traffic to the northerly sides of Saratoga. So these are the westbound lanes. So these westbound lanes are going to be used to facilitate both eastbound and westbound traffic. We'll be putting up delineators between the traffic to make sure that it's very clear. I'm going to be doing some dive-ins on each one of these intersections to show exactly what that looks like in a little bit more detail. Some of the other points of this, though, are that, if you go back one, sorry. Some of the other points of this are that we are, instead of having the bikes, the eastbound bicyclists in the roadway where they normally would be, we're moving them onto the eastbound or the southerly sidewalk, which is adjacent to the event center. And you'll note sort of on the right side of this that we're moving pedestrians, all pedestrian activity, to the north side of Saratoga Drive here. One of the things that we think this facilitates is some of the walking paths that are already coming out of the Fiesta Gardens neighborhood. And so again, we'll be pushing pedestrians to the northerly side of the roadway at both Delaware and the event center driveways and at 28. And so as Tom mentioned, this is going to be used to excavate 4 pits along Saratoga. And you can see that this is going to last for 6, or excuse me, this phase is going to last for about 9.5 months. And you'll see how this phase alone is only going to last for 6 months. And I'll walk through a couple of the other phases that are going to also occur at the same time as this phase. All right, so diving a little bit deeper in, this is the detail of what's going to happen at the Saratoga and Delaware intersection for this first phase. As we mentioned, the Saratoga eastbound lanes will be closed. We also mentioned that we are going to be detouring pedestrians to the northerly side of the northerly sidewalk, and we will allow for bicyclists to use the southerly sidewalk. So in this, we're also going to be facilitating turns from Delaware onto Saratoga. In order to do so, we're going to have to cut back some of this median that's here dividing these lanes. We're also going to be installing a temporary stop line to push some of the traffic back, some of the westbound traffic back just a little bit, again, to help facilitate some of this movement. The bike lane on westbound Saratoga is going to remain in place. It's going to remain in its existing location. And then it's also good to note that this traffic signal will remain on and functioning during this time. And I think that's a really important note because, again, we are familiar with the traffic that's coming through in relation to some of the other projects. And so, so we wanted to make sure that this traffic signal stays functional during this time. So again, doing another dive into this, we're going to show a quick cross section of what this looks like. And so you can see the purple arrows on the top here. So this is looking easterly on towards Saratoga from Delaware. You can see, as we mentioned, that the eastbound traffic is going to be here in the middle lanes, and we're going to maintain westbound traffic as well. We'll have westbound bike lanes adjacent to the westbound traffic lanes, travel lanes as they are today. Pedestrians will be using the northerly sidewalk, and then bicyclists will be using the southerly sidewalk eastbound bicyclists will use the southerly sidewalk. And we'll have detour signage at the intersection to make sure it's really clear where everybody's supposed to go in this intersection. So you'll also note the work zone signage that, again, makes it clear that that southerly portion of Saratoga will be closed. All right, so moving on to the next intersection. So this is the event center driveway along Saratoga. The first thing to note is the signal is going to be in flash, and you can see that these are some relatively complex movements that we're facilitating through here, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to put this signal in flash, just to make sure that all these movements can be facilitated safely. So you'll see here that we again have the signage for the bicyclists to be on the southerly sidewalk here, for the pedestrians to use the northerly sidewalk, and for pedestrians to travel to 28th to come back to the southerly sidewalk. And we think that's that'll facilitate some of the connections to and from the neighborhoods and to and from some of the other destinations in this area. You'll also note that at this location, this is where the eastbound traffic travels back over to their regular eastbound lanes. And that westbound traffic, again, is going to be maintained in its current location. However, we are reducing the westbound lanes down to one lane through here. In the turn lane, you'll note the work zone here is blocking the existing left turn lane here. And so we're going to convert one of those through lanes to a left turn lane. And again, this is all to ensure that we have access to and from the event center driveway. All right, and so we're going to do another quick dive into this. And so this is looking east again on Saratoga from the event center driveway. Again, note the purple or the pink arrows, and this is the direction that we're facing with this. So starting in the middle, we converted that number one left turn lane to, or excuse me, number one through lane to a dedicated left turn lane where we have the existing left turn lane closed. Thank you, Derek, for your expert arrow pointing here. And then the westbound, we have one westbound through lane here. The westbound bike lanes are being facilitated in their existing location. And again, the pedestrians are being routed to the northerly sidewalk in this area. Still through this area, the bicyclists are going to continue using the southerly sidewalk, the one that's adjacent to the event center, and they'll be detoured back to Saratoga at the 28th Avenue intersection. All right, so that's phase one, and we're going to move on to phase two. So phase two introduces work at the Delaware Saratoga intersection, and this work is going to happen, as you can see. Actually, give me one moment. As you can see, it's going to last for about 8 3/4 of a month. And the overlap between these two phases is going to be about 1 1/4 months. And so some of the work that's going to happen here is that the A pit will start to be excavated here, and that some of the pipe work that's going to be required for the project will be done through microtunneling in this area. So everything on Saratoga that we just discussed will remain the same. The changes that are going to happen on Delaware include some shifts in traffic for the northbound bike and vehicle lanes. However, the southbound lanes are going to be dropped down to one single vehicle lane, but the bike lanes are going to be maintained here as well. So we're going to do the same thing that we did for phase one. We're going to do some dives in really quickly so we can see some of the details for that. So again, the Saratoga work is going to remain in place. We'll have the same detours. Bicyclists will be using the southerly side, pedestrians using the northerly side of Saratoga. However, you can see the large work zone in yellow on Delaware now. And so what's going to happen here is that for the northbound direction, vehicles and bikes are going to share the lane here. And for the southbound direction, you can see that one of the southbound lanes on the approach to the intersection is going to be closed, and we'll have one southbound lane going through. And you can see again that we're maintaining the southbound bike lane through this area. All right, so moving on to the next slide. So we're looking southbound here, and we can see, like we mentioned, so starting in the middle, we have the work zone there. Working our way to the left, we have the shared northbound traffic, which is vehicles and bicyclists. And in this phase and in this area, pedestrians are allowed on both sides of the roadway, like normal. For the southbound traffic, we'll have one southbound vehicle lane, and the bike lanes in the southbound direction will be maintained as well. All right, so moving on to phase three. Phase three introduces a new set of pits. These are, again, going to help facilitate the microtunneling installation. You'll note that on Saratoga, we're finishing up some of the work on the Saratoga Drive area. And what that means is that we're going to be installing some manholes and starting to backfill some of those pits. And so you can see that this is the last phase for that Saratoga work, and that will overlap with this new orange Delaware work that's going to occur, and it'll overlap for about 2 months. So talking about the orange Delaware work, this work is going to happen for about 6 months. And what we're going to be doing here is reducing northbound and southbound lanes to one lane in each direction. The bike facilities that are here are going to be maintained. And everything on Saratoga, as we mentioned, is going to stay the same. Everything at the Saratoga Delaware intersection will stay the same as we discussed previously. All right, and then moving on to the last phase of work. So the last phase of work is primarily going to be focused around Delaware and 25th and a little bit north of that intersection. So we will be maintaining the existing bike facilities in this area. However, the southbound bike lanes will be shifted so that they're shared through this area. We'll touch on some of the details of this in just a moment. But you'll note one of the main things here is that the work on Saratoga has now been completed. So Saratoga is going to reopen during this phase. And some of the backfill work and manhole installation is going to occur for some of these northerly pits. And then some of the work, again, as we noted in the beginning, the yellow work is still going to occur through this time at the Delaware-Saratoga intersection. And that's when some of the diversion structure is going to be starting its installation. So going on to the next slide, as we mentioned, northbound vehicles and bike lanes will be maintained as they are on Delaware. Southbound vehicles are going to be shifted so that they're shared with the bike facilities, and that's going to be a single lane going southbound. We are maintaining the eastbound traffic from 25th to Delaware, and we expect that this work is going to happen after the grade separation is going to occur. However, we are going to be restricting left turns from northbound Delaware onto westbound 25th. Again, we do anticipate that this work is going to occur after both the 25th Avenue work is complete and the 28th Avenue work is complete. So we anticipate being able to detour vehicles at 28th westerly as they would like to travel through this area. All right. And so for the last stage, all that remains is the work at the Saratoga Delaware intersection. Again, they're going to be completing the work on the diversion structure, completing any sewer tie-ins, and completing the work to backfill this pit and close everything up. And I think that's about it. All the traffic control in this area will stay the same, but again, you'll notice that the rest of Delaware and the rest of Saratoga will be open as indicated here.
Thank you, Bethany. So this next slide is really an overview of the construction schedule that we have anticipated here. Up at the top there, we have the years 2021 through 2023. Overall, this project is approximately 36 months. The event center site activities, we've started and completed site prep. We're currently ensuring. In the beginning of the year, we're starting to do excavation along with piles. And then the structure, as Tom indicated, is going to be about approximately 20 months. And then finally, an overlap of activities to finish up the project for the final 8 months of site finishing. The bars here are color coded, so this is all the work in purple that is occurring over here at the event center site. In relation to all the event center site activities, we've also transposed the diversion sewer activities along Saratoga and Delaware here. So both the excavation, shoring should be finishing up, excavation should be starting up just as the Saratoga lane closures start to occur as well. So the diversion sewer activities along Saratoga and Delaware are approximately 15 months in total. Bethany provided durations for each of the segments that work is going to be occurring in each of the phase durations for any time that there's overlap of work along Saratoga and Delaware in the different segments here. Overall, it's 36 months as I indicated. Tom also indicated that we've conducted property inspections for those who have elected to do so. We're going to do those every 6 months as identified in our conditions of approval, as well as do ongoing monitoring during heavy construction for noise, dust, and vibration, as well as groundwater monitoring to determine if any settlement occurs. These are our standard construction hours. These were identified as part of our planning application, our conditions of approval. These are also posted up on our project sign and abided by our contractor and managed through the construction management team. So work hours on the event center site are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The typical construction day is 8 to 10 hours, and no truck hauling or delivery is going to occur between 4 to 5:30 p.m. Now, work hours in the street are a little bit different. Along Saratoga, it's only going to be 8 to 4, while on Delaware, it's 8 to 5. And there is no construction work that is planned for weekends or outside of these approved work hours, but there is an exception whenever there is requirement, for example, concrete pours. Once you start, you can't really stop. We have to finish up that pour. And so whenever any of that occurs, we will notify, we will get the exception from the city engineer, and then do massive outreach and notifications to the adjacent properties and neighborhoods. I wanted to share some new webpage content, primarily our monitoring of the event center site activities. So on the left here, there's some screenshots of what the construction camera looks like. If you go to this URL here, you could actually go see this right now. It is a construction camera at the eastern corner of the site, just off of Saratoga, and it has zoom features, so you could see this guy in the backhoe here. I actually zoomed in to 600%, so there are some zoom, pan, and live viewing capabilities that this camera has, so it's pretty cool. As for construction monitoring, further down the page, we have these 4 boxes, and so we really indicate if there's any exceedances. If there is an exceedance for noise, dust, vibration, or groundwater, then we report it out. So for example, here, noise, we didn't have any observed exceedances that exceeded the 90 decibel threshold. We didn't have any vibration exceedances that exceeded the vibrations of 1 inch per second for more than 30 seconds. But between the week of November 30th to December 6th, there was a slight exceedance of dust, mainly because on a week-to-week basis, we will provide updates in indicating if there is an exceedance and what the cause of the exceedance is, as well as the corrective action. So in this case, we've indicated that the result was from equipment starting up and loading of cement trucks near the monitor, and the corrective action was including the wetting of the site with a water truck, after which particulate concentrations decreased. Groundwater is a little bit more detailed, so if you want to go in there onto the site and click on the link, it will provide some groundwater level data, which we have not exceeded at all. Just an overview of our outreach and engagement channels. You may have heard about this community meeting through our project newsletter, specifically giving out news and notices about UFES project-related activities. We've also been promoting the subscription to our SMS text service. We primarily use this text to notice the community for any traffic adjustments and time-sensitive activities, such as concrete pours, and even utilize it to promote the virtual community meeting tonight. We also have the project webpage with status updates and monitoring information. And then we have our UFES specific hotline. And this hotline, I'll share that phone number at the very end here. But ultimately, it's me, Tom, and Ron, our construction manager, who answer the calls on this line. So if it's not a call center, it's directly one of the key members that are part of this team that are helping to oversee this project. So you get the firsthand experience with talking with one of us. And this pretty much ends the presentation. Please stay engaged. We have some methods to stay engaged and sign up at the bottom there. The email updates, you could email us, you could text us, you could visit the website, you could call the UFES hotline and follow us on social media. And for now, I'm gonna pass it on to Kelly Benz to facilitate us through Q&A here. And then all the people at the top here are gonna be responding when appropriate.
Thank you, Derek, and hello, everyone again. I see a few hands up already. We do have a few questions that came in through the registration, so we're just going to go through those very quickly, and then we will get to your questions. You see Jonathan came on and off with his hands up. So we're going to start with Jonathan for the first questions, but you see up on the screen now the questions that came in through the registration. And so the first two questions, if we could have all of our panelists with their cameras on and their microphones ready to answer. The first two questions are about traffic. And the first question is a request for modification of landscape fencing by the sidewalk. Can it be modified?
Thank you, Kelly. Actually, yes, we met with some neighborhood leaders earlier this week, and that was one of the comments from one of the neighborhood leaders from Bay Meadows and Fiesta Gardens. And since last week, we actually coordinated with Parks and Rec that orange fence was actually a protection requirement to protect the trees and landscaping, and a condition required by our Parks and Rec department. After coordination with them and determining that the green construction fence surrounding the construction site was sufficient in protecting the landscaping, the Parks and Rec department indicated that we could remove it. So we will be directing the contractor to remove that orange fence to provide an even safer path of travel on that eastern or southern sidewalk for eastbound bike traffic when we switch to that type of traffic mode.
Thank you, Derek. The next question is about traffic, and I think it was mostly answered in the presentation. What will be the coming and going route of the dump trucks? I believe that was answered during the presentation, but perhaps Derek or Bethany, you could point the person or the slides for somebody to focus on for those answers.
Sure, I could answer this. So for any construction traffic coming to and from the event center site, for that underground structure, it's going to be coming through that event center access easement and onto Delaware to access 92. So anything coming to and from the event center should be coming off of 92 in Delaware. For the pipeline work, it will either, if the work is occurring on Saratoga, it will have to take Saratoga, and then if it's on Delaware, then it will be on Delaware.
Great, thanks, Derek. And I remind everyone who's listening in that we do have an after meeting survey already live on the website. If you go to cleanwaterprogramsanmateo.org, there's a survey there for you to fill out. Let us know how we are doing on this presentation. The next two questions are about monitoring. And the first question is a request for information on monitoring noise, water levels, and vibrations. Where is the online monitoring data?
So I guess I'll answer this question. The monitoring data is on the UFES webpage. If you go to the Clean Water Program and then click to the UFES webpage, the monitoring data is there. It's focused on exceedances. So you get a report each week for the week before that describes exceedances and what they were, what caused them, and what we did to mitigate them. So far, there have been no significant exceedances. We had dust exceedance back when they had the fires around the state because the ambient air quality was poor. We had that dust exceedance when the equipment was started near the construction equipment started near the monitoring equipment. The vibration devices are sensitive to, we haven't had an exceedance, but they've warned me they are sensitive to any kind of disturbance. So if someone was to stand on one or drop something there, and we could get a little ripple. And that's why we have the engineers evaluate the data. So far we've not had any exceedances related to the construction, noise, dust, or otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the very next question about monitoring is answered in your previous question. Okay. The next three questions are about construction. What is the frequency interval of the heavy truck traffic?
So the truck traffic does vary. The heaviest truck traffic will be during the mass excavation of the pit. And that could be a truck every 10 minutes or so. The other times there'll be a lot less truck traffic when the structure's being constructed. There'll be a flurry of activity on the day when concrete's poured and numerous concrete trucks will arrive, but that'll just be one day a week. So that period during excavation will be the heaviest truck traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And what will be the maximum tonnage of each truck? Actually, that's not the question. The maximum tonnage each truck can haul?
18 tons.
Great, thank you.
They're called Super 10 dump trucks.
Okay, wonderful. Last construction question. How is the construction going to affect traffic, noise, etc. on the homes of Saratoga?
Thank you, Kelly. I could answer this. So ultimately, we're trying to minimize any impacts to the community. When it comes to traffic, I think we elaborated on any construction traffic coming to and from the event center site should be utilizing the Delaware route. Any work along Saratoga for the pipeline will be utilizing the Saratoga as an exit route. So there will be intermittent times where truck traffic will increase as we excavate the pits just to haul off those spoils. But after the pit is excavated, then it should be very minimal. As for noise, same thing. The noise, we have our vibration monitors, our noise monitors surrounding the site. So if there is an exceedance of 90 decibels at the property line, we will know through our monitors. We will then work with the contractors for a corrective action to minimize those noises and stay within the 90 decibel limit. And then any work along Saratoga, we will manage that noise as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. The last three questions in the pre-registration are about scheduling. And then we will get to your questions, starting with Jonathan, then Linda, then Jason. Any changes in the scheduling? Now, this was asked before the presentation, so the questions might have already been answered. But is there, where would anybody find information about any changes in scheduling?
Yeah, so on the webpage, we will provide any of the phases, schedules related to the phases on the event center site. For the most part, the 36-month duration is what we were estimating from the very beginning. Since we've been communicating to the public about this, we feel that the 36-month duration that the contractor has provided us is feasible to meet, that I elaborated on earlier in the slide. So we will be sharing this presentation, the video of the presentation later on, as well as the PowerPoint. So anybody can refer to that schedule slide and continue to track it. Any updates to the schedule will be provided onto our project webpage as well as we progress.
Wonderful, thanks, Derek. And again, that's cleanwaterprogram.sanmateo.org. If anyone wants to go to the website. The second to last question is, when will the strong vibrations and noise start and for how long? Again, I believe that was answered during the presentation. So I'm actually going to refer anyone back to the presentation recording to find the answer to that question. The very last question is, does work begin at 7? If work begins at 7 a.m., does that mean the machines start at 6:45?
And the answer is no. No, it starts at 7 o'clock. And if you do hear from that, give us a call or contact us in the forum that we presented to you, phone call, email, and such. Our contractor is very cognizant of their limitations.
Great. Thank you, Ron. Okay, now we're going to open up to live questions. I promised Jonathan to start. So I am going to open up your microphone, Jonathan, and whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. I'm homeowner at 490 East 28th, right across from the site. I've got 5 questions. One follow-up on monitoring. It seems that there's no actual data on the site. Can you clarify on the data side, besides the well data, if we're going to actually be able to see live data, or if you're only going to be reporting exceedances in the past as you have so far?
Thank you, Jonathan. Yes, we will be maintaining the summary version of data sharing here. We will only be sharing any exceedances, except for the groundwater data, in which case we provide a little bit more information. But for the most part, as we indicated in the presentation, we will indicate if there haven't been any exceedances, and if there are, then we will share what the cause of it was and the corrective action.
Okay, but meanwhile, if we during pile driving, if we see things shaken in the house, and there's not going to be any real-time way to address that, it's really going to be a phone call to ask whether or not it hit the red line? Is that going to be the procedure?
Yeah, if you feel any vibration, anything out of the ordinary that you feel is attributed to the construction on the site, please call the hotline number. Me, Ron, or Tom will answer and coordinate with the contractor right away to determine if it is in fact caused by our contractor and activities on the site, and then we will definitely address with some corrective actions.
Okay, appreciate that. I'm going to try to move quickly through my other ones, mostly for Bethany on Saratoga. A request that you open part of the construction side of the street, the west and south lanes that are close to vehicles, for bikes and pedestrians during non-construction hours. It would really provide better social distancing room during the main recreation times during the day, and also minimize the need to route the bikes on sidewalks in the evening. It's a little extra work, but a suggestion that we'd like to ask. On the east and southbound lane on Saratoga, you're not providing a bike lane there because the bikes are going to be on the sidewalk, and wonder if you could put those I think they're called sharrows, on an option on those lanes so that fast riding through bikers, of which there's plenty on that stretch, can actually take the road instead of being on the sidewalk. Only very confident bikers would do this, but it's a suggestion. And if safety protocols could be met, it would be great to do. Last,
Jonathan, just a note, I do want to keep you to about 3 minutes. So
I understand. That's why I'm at least, I want these questions on the record.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm requesting that on Saratoga and Delaware sections affected by closures, that you go to a 25 mile an hour reduction or speed limit, which would be for safety purposes. And then
Was that-
I just
Was
I
that a
just have
question
one-
or just a statement?
That's a request. Yeah, if you could bring it to 25 instead of 35, I think that's the design speed. And then during the winter closures of Delaware between Saratoga and 25th, a request to provide additional lighting along Delaware for bike safety as they merge with traffic, because the lighting there is pretty dim for what will be a merger at that point. So if those could be considered and addressed a little bit now or later, that would be great.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jonathan. I appreciate the time. And if you have no further questions, I'm going to move on to Linda. Thank you, Jonathan. Linda, go ahead whenever you're ready. Your microphone is open. And thank you for your patience, by the way.
Kelly and Linda, sorry if I may interject here. So Jonathan, thank you for your questions. We received a lot of those inquiries and requests from another member of the Bay Meadows community. So we have been looking into those just to make you aware that the team is proactively trying to address those requests and seeing if it's feasible. Thank you.
All right, Linda, go ahead whenever you feel ready. You can just unmute yourself. Linda, are you there? Okay, maybe we've lost Linda. She's quieter. I'm gonna go on to the next person now. Jason was the next person. Jason, I'm gonna open your microphone. Go ahead and ask your question whenever you are ready.
Good evening. My name is I'm sorry about that. That's my my newborn's picture. My name is Jason Pack. I'm a resident also of Bay Meadows. I just had some questions with regards to the dewatering. You know, I understand that some of the interventions that have been proposed were made in especially due to concerns by other community members related to the dewater to settling that occurred at the Contractor Drive projects. Just wanted to ask, was the impermeable shoring intervention part of the Contractor Drive project? And if the answer is yes, then is there anything qualitatively better about our particular shoring intervention that might prevent what occurred over there? That's my first question. The second question may be more related to the fundamentals behind this impermeable shoring. Will the shoring that you guys have installed, will that remain permanent? And is there any potential for long-term settling? Or is the expectation that after you guys dewater, that the water table will return back to its normal level? And then the last question, which is somewhat unrelated, is what effect, if any, will construction or the completion of the project have on the adjacent Bay Meadows Park pond and park area? Those are my three questions, and I'll take my questions off the on mute. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
You want me to answer that, Derek?
I could probably start off,
All right.
and then Tom, yeah, I'll definitely call on you to supplement anything here. So for the Concar project, I am not exactly sure what type of shoring method they've used there, but for us, well, anecdotally, I've heard that it was not an impermeable shoring solution, but you know, that's what I've heard. Cannot confirm that myself.
So, Derek, just to chime in. So yes, Jason, the Concar project, we actually did talk about this over a year ago in terms of the differences of the type of construction in the neighborhood versus what we were proposing. So it was different type of excavation. In our case, we are dewatering from within the excavation, and that shoring system will remain, and it's impermeable. So it's much more contained and different than Concar. And that's why it was chosen for this project.
Thank you, Zelia.
Thanks.
And then, Tom, did you want to address the other questions about what will happen after construction, whether or not dewatering will continue, and also any potential impact to the adjacent park?
Sure. So what we've got is a wall around a wall. So the shoring does remain. It becomes a permanent structure. It doesn't have any function in the future, but it protects the construction of the structure, and it holds the groundwater back. So there really is no impact to the surrounding groundwater because of the impermeable shoring. So there won't be any impact to the pond and the park, and the groundwater levels won't change. So they won't return to anything because they won't have changed. That's the goal of the shoring system. The shoring system isolates the construction from the groundwater table, and so there should be no impact. But we're monitoring that to be sure it's functioning.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Linda, we're going to see if you're there again. Go ahead and unmute yourself if you're there, and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, just a simple question about the parking for the construction crew. Where are they going to park? I'm asking that for two reasons. Hopefully not in the neighborhood around Bay Meadows, but also we've had, at least in my neighborhood, a slew of work trucks stolen for the tools and also the vehicles. There have been 4 in the last 2 years in a community of 312 homes. So hopefully we can have the workers park where it won't irritate the neighborhood and also keep their vehicles safe.
Thank you. I could take the lead on that, and Ron, you may want to supplement me on this, but ultimately we purchased a permanent and temporary construction easement from the county on the event center to basically provide some staging and parking for the construction, for the contractors and laborers. So ultimately they are supposed to be parking on site. They shouldn't be parking anywhere else. So right now, with the type of activities that are occurring with the grading and shoring that have occurred so far, there aren't that many crew members on site that would require us to have them park outside of our construction area. And Ron, if you could talk about just the management overall of where they are parking throughout construction.
They're mostly parking on site, so they shouldn't impact the neighborhood.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we're going to move on to the next. Vanessa, you're going to be next, and then Gil after that. Jonathan, I see your hand is still up, so if you have more questions, we'll come back to you. Vanessa, I'm going to open up your mic. Go ahead and ask your question whenever you're ready. Just unmute yourself.
Hi, there we go. Yeah, Bay Meadows resident. So I'm looking at the blinking light, or essentially you're going to be changing that driveway at the event center on Saratoga into a four-way stop or a three-way stop there. How are we going to mitigate the traffic coming in for the COVID testing? Are they going to be able to have the vehicles kind of zigzag or line up in their parking lot? Because right now we're having a lot of backup onto the road several days of the week.
Thank you for that question, Vanessa. So we actually had a meeting, me and Tom had a meeting with Dana, the CEO of the event center last week. And we talked about specifically that. Right now, the way that she has intended to try to manage that is she's opened up to queuing the vehicles on the event center site, along with managing basically the COVID testing as well as vaccine distribution through appointments. So both with queuing on site along with an appointment protocol, it should help to manage any queuing on Saratoga.
Okay, I know that there have been appointments already, so I'm not really sure, and I've mentioned this before, why there's days or times of the day where it really gets backed up. But so far it has been appointment only. So it's more of an observation, but one that we don't want to see, you know, oh, the road's not closed, but you really can't take it because you're just sitting there at the stop at the blinking light, you know, several dozen cars backed up, you know what I mean? So anything we can do to mitigate that.
Definitely. And Vanessa, you have our hotline, you have our email addresses. If you see it, you know, once we start to place the traffic control on Saratoga and you start to see some significant queuing, please feel free to reach out and we'll coordinate as needed.
And the last question, maybe I missed it. Is this still slated to start the closures on Saratoga in January?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Appreciate it. And our last question, hands up, is Gil. And I'm going to open up your mic in just a second. Just a reminder that we would love to hear your feedback about this meeting tonight. Go to cleanwaterprogramsanmateo.org and fill out the survey we have there. Just a few quick questions. We'd like to know how we did. So Gil, whenever you're ready, go ahead and open your mic and ask your question.
Hey, thanks, guys. I live on Wayne Way, just around the corner, and appreciate all the pictures and data. I have a few questions, and I'm just going to list them all out. And some of them are just requests for information. So, you know, if you just have these answered already somewhere online, just feel free to point me to those. So the first one is the sewage smell in the on Delaware, right by the Expo Center main entrance that's been there for years. Does this project do anything to fix that, or is that a separate problem? Second question is around monitoring, and I'm just seconding the request from the earlier caller who asked to get the real-time data and the historical data instead of, or in addition to just the weekly time delayed updates. And also I noticed that it looks like one of the groundwater monitors isn't readable right now because the car's parked over it. Curious to know how you guys are planning to fix that. And then sort of the meaty question is, I'm curious to know how these projects go bad. So I assume everything's going to go well, but when projects like these go bad, I want to hear what you guys know about this. You know, what happens if the power supply gets disrupted to the diversion system or the smell control system, or what happens when the water capacity is exceeded or the odor scrubbing capacity is exceeded, and what's the lifetime of these facilities, and sort of what happens at the end of their life. And I guess kind of similar to that, what's the maintenance schedule? Like, how often are you guys going to be filling this thing just to test it?
Gil, can I stop you there and just let our team answer just a few of those questions?
All right, those are the main ones. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to drown you.
We'll unpack a few of those, and Derek, start wherever you want.
Sure. The sewage smell by the expo entrance. This project is primarily a wet weather capacity improvement project. So whenever it ultimately is to prevent the sanitary sewer overflows, like the video I showed early on in the presentation of the sewage coming out of the manhole. That one was at the Saratoga and Delaware. Saratoga and Delaware intersection. As for the smells, the area along Delaware is pretty flat, and so we hope that this project will help. But ultimately, we are also looking at other odor management features throughout the entire system. As for monitoring real-time data, we do intend to just share the summaries of exceedances or no exceedances, as I mentioned early on to Jonathan, I believe, who I responded to earlier. And then for maintenance, for odor, water capacity, and just what happens if any of these systems fail. I think you touched upon it at the end of your question about what the O&M maintenance frequency is. I don't have the data in front of me right now, but I believe it could be on the website about how, or in some of our past presentations about the frequency of the times that we are going to be having our operations and maintenance staff go out there. I know that after every storm event where this facility will be used, whether it's only a portion of the facility used or the entire facility of the 5.3 million gallons used, after each event, the operations and maintenance staff, field maintenance staff, will be going out there to just inspect and maintain the features. And then for any of these facilities, the odor, the pumps, the scrubbing material, we do have O&M manuals from the manufacturers that will help to identify what the prescribed and recommended frequency of maintenance and preventive maintenance should be. I believe I answered most of your questions.
Do we miss anything, Gil?
So one thing in terms of the data, so for the wells, the readings are remote. So I know you mentioned there's a car parked over, so we do those. Those are downloaded remotely. I will say that anyone who's interested in data, we can certainly provide that after it's been reviewed, and the quality control. We were concerned about putting stuff that hadn't been reviewed by either our geologist or geotech, and then we've got a company that's doing the dust and sound monitor and vibration. So but if you want to see the actual information, just let us know. Send us an email and we'll share that with you once it's been reviewed and the quality control is there.
Thank you. I definitely do. And the note about the car being parked over the sensor was from the latest groundwater report up on the site.
Thank you, Gil. Did that answer everything, or did you have any follow-up?
I guess the questions about, is there, backup power for these things if power goes out, and the actual overall capacity and how we ensure it doesn't get exceeded. I can send the rest of my questions, are pretty minor, in the survey follow-up.
Thank you.
Thank you for restating your question. I had written and scribbled in my chicken scratches here, generator, to respond to that question. Okay. We do have the electrical building that Tom and me talked about in our presentation. There will be a generator on site for any power failures. It's a backup generator that will run if and when a power failure occurs to help send power to the facilities. In which case, it will provide the facility time for power to come back on, or for more fuel to be put into that generator as needed.
Okay, and then the overall capacity of the system and how we don't overflow it.
So the diversion systems right there on at the intersection of Saratoga and Delaware, and then we have other diversion structures further south, along with some of our other pumps, as well as the treatment plant, are all going to be. The intent is to have them all communicating with each other. So our wastewater treatment plant will be able to manage and see all the flows throughout the system at UFES, at the wastewater treatment plant, at certain points within our system to help identify and manage the entire system as a whole, instead of just looking at UFES as a facility and having its own capacity. It's the entire system capacity that we're managing, instead of just this one facility.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you, Gail. Appreciate it. Vanessa, I see that your hand is still up. I'm going to open up your microphone again. Go ahead and ask any follow-up question that you might have. You just have to unmute yourself.
I don't have one. Sorry, that must have been a miss hit there. Thank you.
All right. I see, Gil, your hand is still up. I'm going to guess that maybe you had a follow-up. If you do, go ahead and ask your question.
I swear I lowered it. Now it's lower.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, and that concludes all the hands up. There's no further Q&A questions. I remind everyone that we'd love to hear your feedback about this event tonight at cleanwaterprogramsanmateo.org. Go there, there's a survey waiting for you. It'll only take a few minutes and help us improve all the time. I want to thank all the panelists for coming tonight, all the guests for joining us. We appreciate it. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the cleanwaterprogram.org website by the morning. And I thank you very much, everybody, for joining us tonight. And this concludes our meeting. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.